Right, so in this video we're going to look at how you make ship controls essentially. So I've just made myself a little sprite that I can use, just call it SPL ship, but it's up to you what you guys want to use. I'm going to follow on from previous videos where I've used objects to make a game with platforming physics and obviously platform controls, and obviously the same with a Zelda type dungeon crawler with that sort of control scheme and physics as well applied to that. Now, we could also apply physics to this, potentially. It will not work the same, though, and it's not the best thing to use the physics, but we can leave the physics in if we really need to. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate what I did previously, just save on time. So, obj underscore, I'm going to call it player, oops, I can spell it properly, player ship. And in this player ship, I'm going to give it a different sprite, which is this sprite. Doesn't matter how big the sprite is, it's an odd number just so I can get the point in properly. So now I can set some values in for it. So what I'm going to do for this, now we don't really need that much. So we don't actually need X and Y speed this time. We only need speed, and that is pretty much it. So what we might do is just set speed back to 0, because we'll start at nothing and then it can speed up, or we could just set it to go right off the bat. But that's pretty much all we need in the create event anyway. So what we now need to do is we need to make sure we can turn left and right. So we're going to basically make it so a ship we can move left, right, and go forward, backward, whatever. It doesn't matter. So in order to do this, we need to have a few keyboard checks. Now we've got left, right, and we've also got up as well, which we can have. We can also have down as well. Doesn't matter. That's absolutely fine. However, this one, so which direction we're going in? So this was for if we're going left, right, up, down like this, but we're not going to do that. We're going to be going in the direction of which the ship is facing. So we actually don't need these anymore. We do, however, still need to set the direction at some point. Now this is quite easy to do. So in order to do this, well, first we need to check what direction we're currently facing. So that's really easy to do. So we do x, so the x value of where we're traveling equals x, so the original x value of where you are plus wherever you're going to. So to do this, because we're traveling in a certain direction at a certain speed, we need something that's inbuilt called length direction x. So that will say what length across x we're traveling, so how far we're traveling and at what speed. So we're going to travel at a certain speed, and we're also going to travel at the angle of which the image is facing. So image angle. So whatever way we're facing will go that way. Same for the y as well, exactly the same. But instead of plus length dir x, length dir underscore y. Speed and the same image angle, so wherever we're facing. So that will go in a certain direction depending on which angle we are facing. Now we don't need any of this stuff anymore, but however we do need left and right, and we also need up, but obviously we're not going to use some of these things. We could keep the collision in if we want to, that's fine, but we also don't need these checks here. Now technically speaking, so this is for moving, so what I might actually do is stick these at the end. So again, if we've got any collision checks or anything like that, or we've moved it, that should be afterwards, which is absolutely fine. Now, we don't need to do image scale, because what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the image so we can turn left, right, and then go in the direction whichever way it's facing. So, to do this, we'll need something called image underscore angle, which we've used just a minute ago. And if we go left, we're going to turn left, so plus equals 4. So it'll turn 4 pixels every frame, basically. And we can do the same for this one as well. For instead, image underscore angle plus equals -4 instead. So we can shift the other way. Now, this makes it easy because then we can just shift either way we want to go and it's not a problem. Now, with the VK up, we need to set a speed. Otherwise, we don't know which way we are going. So if we set, well, we can't actually move anyway is what I mean. So what we can do is just set speed. We could set it to 5, say. So if you press up, it sets it to 5. However, we do need to get something to stop us again when we let go of up. Now, you could do this in multiple different ways. But what you could also have is just an else statement here. I might show you some other ways in a little while. Let's have else speed equals nothing. Now, there is going to be a bit of an issue with this. So if you ever let go of your speed, then what will happen is it'll just completely stop to a complete standstill immediately, basically, which some people might want that, some people don't, but we'll see. So once we've done this, we now also need to put it in your room. So at the minute, my room's got this stuff in from previous videos that I've got. I'm going to delete my little player guy, and I'm going to put my ship in instead, so we can hopefully move this around the map. So let's play this, see what happens, see if it works. Hopefully it should. So we've got his little player. Let's see if he changes. Right, he is indeed spinning, but he's spinning in a very strange way, and there's a good reason for that. Let's try up. So yes, there we go. So we're moving up. It actually moves towards the direction we're facing, which is what we want. But obviously it's coming to a complete standstill immediately. But if you hold it, it will work. But if you notice the collision isn't working, oh dear, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? So we'll be able to figure this out in a second. So on the ship, the reason why it's going in a weird way when it spins is because, again, on this, your little origin point is at the top left. And the problem with this is it will spin around this point. So what we want to do is get it into the middle. So if we put middle center, it will spin around the middle now. So that should fix that problem immediately. So let's have a look. So let's come back on here. If we spin, yeah, it spins properly now. It spins around the axis in the middle. And we can press forward and it'll whiz off. Hooray, there we go. No problems, apart from it immediately comes to a stop, which is not ideal. We can change this though. So let's go back onto his object is there. I'm just going to double click it just to make sure you guys do. So instead of having speed equals 0 if you let go of up, we could always say to it minus equals. So this will keep counting down by 0.1, say. So it will basically gradually come to a stop. Now you could speed that up so it comes to a stop quicker. Now there is still going to be an issue with this because we're doing minus equals now. Whenever you're not holding up, it's just going to keep reversing and reversing and reversing and reversing, which we don't want. So instead of having an else statement, we'll say if speed is bigger than 0. So at any point it's bigger than 0. So if you're constantly holding up, it will constantly make it 5. That's fine. Anything else, it'll just now slow it down, hopefully. So if we have a look at this and speed this up, there we go. So it now comes to a standstill, which is pretty good. So we can speed up, slow down, all this, that, and the other, and it's great. So the issue now we've got is, why is the collision not working? Well, it's because we're telling it to be y speed and x speed equals 0 if we hit the collision, but we're not using that anymore. So this is a bit of a problem now because we can't use it. Well, we can use it. We just have speed set to 0. So what this will now do, at any point, if we hit those, the speed will just be absolutely nothing. Let's see. So reset this. There you go, stops. But now, oh, there we go. So we can move a tiny bit, but we get stuck on it. And that's because you're not technically moving away from it at any point. So it just gets stuck. So the collision does work for this somewhat, but you're getting stuck on stuff and it's just going to get stuck forever. We cannot move. So this is why I've said it's a bit tricky using this sort of thing for it. Now, what we could do, instead of having place meeting, we could have y plus however big you want it. So however big the sprite is necessarily, or you could have it as that. But we could just have equal plus speed. And same for this one. Instead of x speed, just put speed. And we'll see what that does. Alright, let's have a look. So yeah, still get stuck on it. But we can get away a little bit easier. But that is because it's still having this issue of, well, we're technically hitting it and it's not ever going anywhere. So this isn't going to work in the way that we necessarily want it to work. In terms of getting the collision to work properly with things like that would be not to necessarily stop it, but we could tell it to teleport just slightly above instead, rather than set the speed as nothing, because you could potentially keep clipping yourself in because of how the object maneuvers around the space. So what we could do potentially is so if we hit a Y value, so depending on whereabouts we hit it from is going to be the problem, because if we hit it from underneath, we can't say plus it because it'll go inside of it. So that's a bit of a problem. So we'd have to check if it's underneath or if it's on top, which means we're going to need extra collision. So essentially, the collision isn't going to work using this. We would need to use a different type of collision. Now, I'm not going to go over that in this video because the complexities of doing that is going to be a video in itself, pretty much, rather than just making this little ship actually work, which is what we want it to do, essentially. So we're just going to turn off all collision for now. That's fine. That's not a problem. If you notice, there is an issue because it says that down's not being used. Now, we could also have a down. That's not a problem. So if we have if down, we can set that to a certain speed. So we can say speed equals -2 instead. So it will now go in the minus direction. However, this has now caused a problem with this one because the speed is now negative. So it will just keep it as negative constantly. So what we now need to do is if speed goes below 0, so if SPD is less than 0 but not equal to, that's important. So if speed is not that, then we can do the same thing. So speed plus equals 0.1 until we hit 0. So now at any point if we hit 0, it will not do either of these. It will either slow down or it'll slow down one way, it will slow down the other way. So let's have a look, see if this has done it. There we go, so that speeds up, that speeds up. We can go backwards a little bit and it'll slow down, but it won't be super fast. But yeah, forward is really fast, and we can spin, do stuff, and we could potentially put asteroids in and start shooting them if you're doing an asteroid type game, or you can put ships in and fire them. So basically that's how you do like well, it could even be a car potentially. You could do it as a car as well. So that's how you do basic controls for things anyway. So that's all the controlling of player objects, and that's just objects for players in itself. There are all sorts of other objects we can use for certain different things. So we'll look at that in some other videos at some other point, but that is how you do using objects within your game, basically, and how you interact with them, how you play with them, and how you do some basic movements. Whatever movements you want to put in is up to you, but there are some basic things just to sort of get you going on what type of game you want to make.